My sister and I got adopted by the richest family. One of us stayed to be a playmate for the rich son, and the other went to their old house to keep the grandfather company. In the past life, my sister saw the handsome, gentle-looking young master and didn't hesitate to stay. But it turns out he was a psycho and a sadist behind that nice guy facade. It wasn't long before he crippled her legs. Meanwhile, with the grandfather's support, I went abroad, entered the entertainment world, and became the youngest Triple Crown actress. My sister was so desperate she took both of us down in a fire just to be reborn. But sis, no matter how twisted the young master is, he's just a teenager. Grandpa's been around a long time and knows a lot more tricks. We got adopted anyway, and Lisa dropped to her knees in front of Sydney, all teary-eyed. Grandpa, let me stay with you. You look so much like my grandpa. It feels so warm to see you. I'll treat you just like my real grandpa. Seeing this, I realized Lisa was reborn too. In the last life, we both were adopted by the richest family today. Sydney was the head of the family, living with just his grandson. Sydney gave us the choice to be with him or his grandson Kaden. Last time, Lisa went for Kaden without a thought because he was good-looking. I ended up staying with Sydney. Bad call. Kaden was a psycho even at his age. Lisa suffered all sorts of abuse and ended up in a wheelchair. I stayed with Sydney, learned all sorts of skills, and turned out gorgeous. He sent me abroad, and when I came back, I had a smooth liftoff into the entertainment world with all the connections and money. I became a hit in the film industry and snagged the Triple Crown. Life was great. To everyone, Lisa and I had totally different lives. Lisa thought the same, but she didn't hate Kaden. She directed her jealousy at me. She burned me alive on the night of my third award win. And because she couldn't move fast, she died in the fire too. Now reborn, Lisa rushed to claim my life. But she didn't need to. I'd give it to her willingly. Kaden might be twisted, but he's just a kid. Sydney's way more cunning. Sydney nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. Well, since you're so respectful, you'll be coming with me. Lisa, all excited, knocked her head on the ground thrice and stood up, holding on to Sydney's arm. Grandpa, let me help you. With a smile, Sydney nodded. Good kid, good kid. Then he pointed at me. You're with Kaden now. He added meaningfully to Kaden. Kaden, take good care of your sister, okay? Lisa, holding back a laugh, said to Kaden, brother, take care of my sister. Please. She really emphasized take care. Then she glanced at me with triumph and went upstairs with Sydney. I watched her leave with a chill smile. Enjoy your new life, but since you grabbed it, don't you dare give it back. A voice suddenly sneered in my ear. Seen enough? My stomach dropped, and I looked at Kaden. Even at 15, he looked eerie, not normal at all. A tough case. I couldn't relax around him. I put on a sweet smile and approached. Hi brother, I'm Sue, your new sister. Kaden's icy eyes sized me up, like something in them clicked on. I saw interest sparking there. You want to be my sister? Not really, but what can I do? I'm just an 8-year-old, adopted by a crazy family. I can't escape. Even if I killed him, I'd still face revenge from the rich family. So for now, I'll just have to play the little sister. I nodded. Yeah. Then I tilted my head, full of hope and fear. Brother, do you not like me? A ghost of a smile touched Kaden's lips. Like, of course, I do. I grabbed his arm excitedly. Great. I have a brother. I have a brother. His body stiffened suddenly, and in the next second, he pushed me hard, sending me to the ground. He looked down. Get lost. Don't touch me without permission. Temperamental indeed, what a little psycho. Lisa, at some point, stood by the railing on the second floor, just watching. Seeing me get pushed around made her look pleased, until the butler reminded her, Miss, it's late. Time for bed. Okay, Lisa responded, glanced at me smugly, and left. I got up from the ground, went to Kaden, and stubbornly hugged his arm. No, I want to hold on to you. Brother, I bet I looked like a lost puppy, ready to whimper away in the corner. Kaden froze again, but this time, he didn't push me away. Even though I wasn't around Kaden in my past life, I knew him well. This kid turned out so twisted because he lacked love. His parents died young. Even when they were alive, they fought all the time. A small fight every 3 days, a big one every 5. They had a business marriage with no love involved. Whenever they argued, they'd talk about divorce right in front of little Kaden. That's your son, you take him. He came out of you, you take him. I don't want him. One time, during a fight, things got physical. His mom accidentally killed his dad in front of him, then killed herself out of panic. Kaden was only 5 then. Watching them lying in a pool of blood, he stayed unnaturally calm. After that, he was always with Sydney. And what sort of good person could crazy old Sydney teach him to become? Before Kaden's dad got married, he was always partying with Sydney, sometimes with 3 or 4 people at a time. He hardly spent any time with Kaden, busy with his own crazy pursuits and chasing eternal life. Kaden grew up in this kind of messed up environment until he was 15. If he didn't turn out twisted, who would? I decided to use love to reform him. Whether it works or not, I have to try. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. As soon as Kaden turned 15, he moved out. He glanced at me with dark eyes, looked at my hand tightly gripping his arm, and said nothing as he began walking. His legs were too long. At 15, he was already 6 feet tall. I wasn't even 4 feet 3 yet. I couldn't keep up. Big brother, I said in a cutesy voice, slow down. I can't keep up. Can you carry me? Kaden frowned, annoyed. Shut up. Keep talking and I'll feed you to the sharks. I started crying. You're mean. I don't want to be shark food. It hurts. I cried, smearing tears and snot all over him as I snuggled closer. In a way, I was testing how much he could tolerate. If this is how he reacts verbally, I know my boundaries. Quiet. Kaden pointed at me. One more sound and you're shark food. I shut up immediately, looking at him with teary eyes, sniffling and shaking my shoulders. Kaden closed his eyes, probably never having met such a stubborn kid. He was annoyed to death. I watched him nervously, hoping he wouldn't lose it. Did I go too far? Suddenly, Kaden bent down. I jumped, quickly covering my butt. Don't hit me. Kaden, his expression was complicated as he frowned, then picked me up and walked. Phew, I made it through this one. Should I be bolder now? I clung to his neck. You're not mad at me anymore, right? You're not really going to toss me to the sharks, are you? I'll be good from now on. Don't be mad, and don't leave me, okay? My sister doesn't want me, and you're all I have now. Kaden took a deep breath, turning his head to glance at me with disdain. Seeing my pitiful look, he finally gave in. I won't throw you away now, but if you don't behave later, it's straight to the sharks. I laughed, rubbing my face against his neck. I knew you wouldn't leave me. You're the best. Kaden, can you shut up now? Okay, got it. Kaden, he muttered through clenched teeth. Wish I could sew your mouth shut. How much does he dislike my mouth? When we got to his place, he tossed me into a room and left. This guy is not only twisted but also a lone wolf. He doesn't allow any staff to stay overnight. Leaving a kid like me here, how am I supposed to take care of myself? Good thing I'm not a real kid. After freshening up, I wrapped a towel around myself and walked out. I looked all over but didn't find any kids' clothes. Not even any adult clothes. He's really not cut out for this. As I was searching, Kaden's deep voice came out of nowhere, startling me. What are you doing? I took a deep breath, adjusted my mood, and turned around, pouting. I smell nice now, but I don't have any clothes to wear. Ever since we met, his eyebrows never relaxed. Right now, his annoyance was off the charts. Why are you so troublesome? I squatted with my back to Kaden, whining. Do you hate me again? Why do you hate me? What did I do wrong? I heard footsteps from behind, his strides loud even on the carpet, showing how irritated he was. Soon, Kaden handed me a t-shirt, tossing it on top of me. Put it on, and get to your room. Stay there tonight. Got it. I took the shirt off my head, stood up, nodded, then waved. Good night, big brother. Kaden ignored me and walked away. I took the shirt to the bedroom and locked the door. Sitting on the bed, I finally relaxed a bit. The first day went by safely, right? Still, it's best to be careful. Half-opened eyes while sleeping. The result of that, I didn't sleep well at all. To be honest, in my previous life, did I ever really sleep? Even abroad, I feared Sydney would bust in at any moment. Lisa never knew the old me had severe depression, so her fire was a relief. But now, everything gets a fresh start. 3. I have to stay strong and save myself. The sun was already rising outside. I was still in the clothes Kaden gave me last night, barefoot, as I stepped out. Going downstairs, I only saw an auntie busy in the kitchen. When she saw me, she gave me a warm smile. You must be Miss Sue. I nodded. Yes. Auntie, where's my brother? He left early in the morning but asked me to come early and make you breakfast. Breakfast was sumptuous, but I didn't have much appetite, so after a few bites, I put down my chopsticks, thinking about how I should tell Kaden about going back to school when he returned. Kaden didn't come back until after 11 at night. I heard the sound from the bedroom door, took a deep breath, and prepared myself before heading out. Kaden had already returned to his room, but he wasn't there when I entered. I could faintly hear the sound of water from the bathroom. Knowing he was showering, I climbed onto his bed. When Kaden came out and saw me on his bed, his face immediately turned dark. Who told you to sleep here? Get off. I clutched the blanket, shrinking back. But I'm scared, brother. I want to sleep with you. Just as he was about to lose his temper, I started crying, boo-hoo. I could see a mix of deep helplessness and anger on Kaden's face, a really complicated guy. He closed his eyes for a moment, then squeezed out a cuss word from between his teeth. Feigning ignorance, I asked, brother, what does that mean? Shut up. Kaden suddenly came over, pulled the blanket off, and dragged me up. I was just about to cry when he silenced me with a gesture. Then he threw me back onto the bed. You better get your butt to school tomorrow. Just like that? That was easy. A week into school, I finally saw Lisa. She wore an expensive princess dress, holding a delicate little basket, placing gifts on each desk as she entered the classroom. When she reached my desk, she gave me a provocative look, put a small box on my desk, and left. After handing out all the gifts, Lisa went to the front, elegantly bowed to everyone, and introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Lisa, the granddaughter of the richest man, Sydney. Please take care of me in the future." That intro made me wonder if Lisa even got reincarnated. Otherwise, how could a 20-something spirit say something so pretentious in front of a bunch of 8-year-olds? What's the point of showing off to a bunch of kids? A boy named Jason pointed at Lisa and asked, "Doesn't the richest family only have one grandson?" Lisa paused, her expression flickering with a trace of embarrassment, but quickly lifted her chin. "I'm adopted by the richest family." "What's your relation to Sue?" Someone pointed at me and asked. "You two look alike." Lisa glanced at me, pursed her lips, said nothing, and went down. The class teacher then spoke. "All right, let's welcome the new student with applause, and we will start the class." My desk mate leaned over, whispering, "Do you know the new girl?" I just nodded but didn't mention Lisa is my fraternal twin sister. After class, Lisa called me to a deserted corner of the playground, warning me, "Sue, though we're sisters and both got adopted by the richest, you're with Kaden while I'm with Grandpa. Since we don't live together, it's best if we don't contact each other much." Since she put it like that, what else could I say? I just nodded. Lisa looked me up and down, then suddenly laughed. "So, not liking living with Kaden, right? Look at what you're wearing, huh?" She spun around in front of me. "This was bought by Grandpa. Nice, isn't it?" Seeing I didn't respond, Lisa lifted her chin again. "Anyway, don't come to me for help in the future. I won't help you. In that case, Sue, we'll each endure our own hell and bear our burdens." After saying that, she turned toward the teaching building, muttering, "Anyway, I'm done with suffering." It seems that Sydney hasn't taken any action against her yet, but don't worry, it's coming. Sure enough, a few days later, I got some news. Sydney took Lisa abroad for recuperation. In the past life, Sydney took me abroad when I was in college. So why so soon in this life? Maybe the news I spread actually worked? Noticing my surprise, Kaden gave a cold smirk. "Look closely," and that smile was ruthlessly extreme. "Your sister's been demanding everything since she came to Grandpa. It seems like she's in his favor. Don't worry, abroad is open, and the old man will keep her well fed." I had to put on a confused face. But deep down, I knew crystal clear. It was Lisa's early exposed greedy nature that harmed her. Plus, I added fuel to the fire. Time flew by. The next time I saw Lisa was when we were 18. She came to my university as an exchange student. We hadn't seen each other for 10 years, and she looked no different from the last lifetime, still gloomy. Just dressed way more luxuriously than before. Last lifetime, it was Kaden who tortured her. This time, it was Sydney. Different person, same outcome. Destiny decided, fate brought us to die and get reborn together, now attending the same university, even sharing the same dorm. When I stepped in, she was just sitting by the bed, dazed. Hearing the door, she jumped up like a startled bunny. Seeing it was me, she dazed for a moment but seemed relieved. "Oh, it's you." Lisa slightly lifted her chin, looking me over. "How have you been these years? Does Kaden still treat you well?" Just as I was about to speak, a soft chuckle came from behind me. Kaden approached, stopping beside me, still holding my suitcase. He cast an indifferent glance over Lisa and casually asked, "Since when did I become a creep without knowing?" Seeing Kaden, Lisa's expression, which wasn't good to begin with, turned even paler. Just like I have issues from Sydney, Lisa probably has her own issues with Kaden, too. She swallowed, her voice a bit scratchy. I was just talking nonsense, sorry." Kaden didn't look at her again or say anything, just scouted the dorm briefly before coming over to help me make the bed. Then he started unpacking my stuff, folding my clothes neatly and putting them in the closet. After he was done, he reminded me, "The driver is waiting for you. If you want to go home after class, just call me, I'll pick you up. If not, let the driver take you to the office." He glanced at the dorm's surroundings. "Stay here for a few days just to experience it. It's more convenient to live in a house off campus." I finally get to live like a normal person this time around, and now I'm just like an average college student. "I don't want to move off campus. I want to stay here," I said. Kaden nodded. "Okay. All set. I'm leaving now." He walked up to me, just like when I was a kid, gently ruffled my hair, and then threw a warning glance at Lisa before heading out. I walked him down, and when I got back, I met Lisa's incredulous stare. She couldn't wait to ask, "Why is he so nice to you?" The quickness of Lisa's breakdown kind of surprised me. I deliberately put on a matter-of-fact expression. "He's my brother. Isn't it his job to be nice to me? Doesn't Sydney treat you well?" Lisa lost it. She collapsed onto the edge of her bed, clutching her head like she was in some extreme, inescapable pain, whispering, "It's not supposed to be like this." Suddenly, she stood up and tried to rip my clothes off me. I shoved her away. "What are you doing?" Lisa's face turned red, her head shaking, her cheeks quivering with intensity. Like she was in some kind of trance, she reached out for me again. Take off your clothes. Let me see. Let me see. I need to see. She was genuinely triggered. Worse than I had been in my past life. Of course, Sydney didn't disappoint me. I pushed Lisa away again, lifted my hand and gave her a smack right across the face. Snap out of it. Lisa stood there frozen, like the power had been shut off. I grabbed her arm, pretending to be concerned. Sister, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Lisa pushed me away hard, glaring at me with resentment, tears of indignation in her eyes. Why? Why is everyone so nice to you? Sydney, even Kaden. Why them, not me? Oh, sis, if only you knew. I was tormented pretty badly by Sydney in my previous life. If you hadn't set me on fire, I'd still be stuck in that living hell, with no clue how long until I could save myself. I did think about saving myself, calling the cops or running away, but it would take until I grew up to act. But Sydney, that sick weirdo, seemed to read my mind. Don't think you'll escape. Don't rely on the cops either. Even if you don't consider if your little arms can fight back my big legs, think about your sister. Every move you make is in my eyes. Don't act impulsively, or not only will you die, but your sister will too. Sue, stay with Grandpa. What's his is yours. Hasn't he been good to you, living long-term under his oppression and mental control? I eventually just gave in. But this sister I wanted to protect ended up burning me out of jealousy in the end. My previous life was such a joke. What's Lisa's life now, if not the same? I looked at her calmly, quietly amused. Sis, is Grandpa mistreating you? What did he do? Lisa wiped her tears and suddenly laughed. I'm fine, really. I'm just super stressed lately. Oh, you didn't know? I'm about to be a big star. I nodded. Well, congrats. The entertainment world, that place without a shred of moral bottom line, is no good. Especially since Sydney's the one pushing her in, it's clear what's about to happen. Lisa raised her chin triumphantly. Once I'm a superstar, everything will sort itself out. No one will bully me when I've got fans to back me up. With the hope for a better future in sight, Lisa's cheeks started quivering again, this time with excitement. Even though it's fall now, the weather's still pretty hot. In the morning, I noticed Lisa's long-sleeved pajamas, so I asked offhandedly, aren't you hot in those long sleeves? I just wanted to say something, see if it hits a nerve. If it doesn't, no harm done. But it did hit. I can wear whatever I like. What's it to you? Pretending to be upset, I said. I was just showing some care. Why be so snappy? I went to the bathroom to wash up. Lisa's voice suddenly came from behind. Sue, life's not all that peachy for you either, is it? I paused, turned to her, pretending I didn't hear her right. What did you say? Don't play dumb. Lisa's voice turned cold with sarcasm. Kaden's the best actor, and now you're quite the show too. Her gaze landed on my legs, and she chuckled. Better use your legs while they still work, before you regret not using them one day. She was talking about her past life, wasn't she? I glanced down at my legs and mumbled, don't talk nonsense, then headed into the bathroom. Of course, Lisa wasn't just talking nonsense. She's probably counting down the days till Kaden finally breaks my legs, just to laugh at me. But soon, my chance to strike back came. Military training ended, and Kaden came to pick me up from school. Grandpa wants us to go back to the old house for dinner, Kaden said, keeping his eyes on the road, his voice calm and emotionless. I'd see that person again. I looked out the window and just gave a light. Kaden seemed to glance at me sideways. Nervous? Or you just don't want to see Grandpa? I turned back and was about to speak when Kaden added, if you don't want to see him, you don't have to. That old guy isn't much to look at. Yeah, Kaden knows his grandfather well. Even though I haven't seen Grandpa in 10 years, he's your grandfather, and so he's mine too. I should see him, I replied, then added, it's not like it's an everyday thing. Kaden said, They say bad things last 1,000 years. It seems true. Sydney's in his 80s now. Aside from some heart issues, he's pretty healthy. Even the heart stuff isn't a big deal for him. He's got money, so special treatments costing millions aren't an issue. Guess that money isn't wasted. Maybe Sydney really found some secret formula for immortality. I scoffed internally, keeping a well-behaved front as I followed Kaden inside. Grandpa, Kaden greeted flatly. I bowed. Hello, Grandpa. Sydney had a cane now. He looked me up and down, then chuckled. That look was all too familiar, like a disgusting toad licking me with its tongue. Really gross. Kaden stepped closer, blocking Sydney's gaze from me. Sydney withdrew his stare, nodded, and handed me a red envelope. Sue, Grandpa's been abroad these years, hasn't seen you, hasn't given you any gifts. Sorry for neglecting you. This is a small token from Grandpa. Don't say Grandpa's partial to your sister. The thought of accepting it from Sydney's extended hand made me sick, and I hesitated. Lisa came down from upstairs, still in long sleeves and pants. Just take Grandpa's envelope. You can't refuse a gift from an elder. Don't be rude, she nudged. Fine, who am I to refuse free money? Just as I was about to reach out, a large hand snatched the envelope from Sydney. Kaden opened it, took out a bank card, and chuckled. That's quite a sum, Grandpa. I'll hold it for Sue. Then he reminded me, Sue, aren't you gonna thank Grandpa? I quickly nodded, thank you, Grandpa. Sydney gave a nonchalant saying, you're not grown up around me, so you're distant, unlike your sister. He patted the seat beside him. Lisa, come sit by Grandpa. Lisa hesitated only a second, then sat. Sydney's withered hand, seemingly casually, patted Lisa's thigh while looking at me. Sue, Grandpa's not saying you're not likable like your sister. You haven't smiled since you came in. Facing the creepy old perv, I couldn't bring myself to smile. I wanted to knock his teeth out, but I forced a grin anyway. Sydney stood with his cane. Kaden, come with me to the study. I've something to discuss with you. Kaden told me he'd be right back, then helped Sydney upstairs. Lisa glared coldly at their retreating figures, and when they were out of sight, dusted her thigh as if brushing off something filthy. Then she took my hand. Sue, it's been years. Stay over tonight. I laughed internally. She wants to get into showbiz with that acting, with how she's treated me at school. This sudden change screams of hidden motives. I glanced upstairs. I don't know, I'll have to check with my brother. If he's okay, I'll stay. I said it on purpose, and Lisa fell for it. I told you. Told me what? I asked. Lisa raised an eyebrow in triumph. Oh, nothing. I'll go get your room ready. I followed her up. At the study door, I paused, hearing Sydney's furious voice inside. You brat, you dare defy me now too. Kaden's cool voice followed. Grandpa, at your age, time to slow down and enjoy life. Sydney slammed his cane on the ground, a dull thud echoing. You must bring Sue to me tonight. My body went rigid, blood running cold, fists clenched tight. So that's Lisa's game too. I was more angry than scared now. After all, I'd spent years brainwashing Kaden. I kept reminding him, openly and subtly, to seize control so Sydney couldn't manipulate him. Oh, yeah, getting Sydney to go abroad early was my doing too. I leaked info about some island abroad supposedly having an immortality drug. Sydney knew of the island, so he totally bought it. Suddenly, the study went silent. Suddenly, Sydney's voice rang out, filled with fear. What are you doing? Kaden, you wanna get physical? I'm your grandpa. Kaden laughed icily, his voice like it rose straight from hell, carrying a chilling coldness. Grandpa, you're getting old. I told you, you should relax and take care of yourself. I don't care how you play around outside, or about that Lisa. You can mess around all you want with her. But Sue is my line. Just a reminder, don't cross it. Sydney's old voice trembled. What do you want? What can you do to me? Kaden let out a nearly inaudible laugh. Not much. But you know, old folks just suddenly passing away isn't unusual, don't you think? Kaden, what are you doing? Sydney cried out in pain. Just kidding, don't take it seriously, Kaden said lazily with a chuckle. That's all I heard before I turned and went downstairs. Not long after, Lisa came down too, excitedly telling me, I've got a room all ready for you, Sue. You've got to stay the night. She's not staying. Kaden's leisurely voice floated down from above. Lisa froze and instinctively let go of my hand. Kaden descended in a few steps, coming to my side. Leaving now? I shook my head. Let's have dinner first. I should at least have a meal with Grandpa. Kaden's deep gaze rested on me for a moment, then he nodded. At the table, I turned into quite the chatterbox, as if I had endless things to talk about with Sydney. Sydney kept praising my sweet talk. Kaden surely noticed I was acting different, but he didn't say anything. He kept eating slowly and gracefully. I turned my gaze back to Sydney and continued, Grandpa, you wouldn't believe it, but my sister's the prettiest girl in our school. It hasn't even been that long since school started, and she's already got tons of admirers. Lisa's hand slackened, her fork clattered to the ground. Sydney's smile faltered for a moment before laughing again and asked a servant to pick up the fork and get a new one for Lisa. Be careful, he cautioned her. Lisa's voice quivered gently. Grandpa, don't listen to Sue. I don't have boys chasing after me. How can that be? I've seen it. I chuckled. Are you just shy in front of Grandpa? Sis, you're 18. You can date. Grandpa wouldn't actually stop you, right? Lisa lowered her head, ordering in a hushed tone. Shut up. As if struck by a sudden thought, she looked up to Kaden. Little sister's got lots of admirers at school too, big bro. You're not worried, right? Kaden turned to look at me, raised his hand to pat my head. Your studies come first now. We can talk about dating after you graduate from college. I nodded. A flicker of frustration crossed Lisa's eyes, but when she met Kaden's gaze, her face turned pale, and she quickly looked down. Her hands holding the cutlery trembled. After dinner, Kaden took me away. He stayed quiet during the ride, not saying a word. Back home, as I was about to head straight upstairs, Kaden's voice came from behind. Want to see something interesting? I turned around. What's interesting? I really didn't know. Come with me. Kaden took my hand and led me upstairs to his study. He switched on a computer, and Lisa's agonized screams filled the room. Grandpa, I didn't. I really didn't. Please, Grandpa, I beg you. It hurts. Grandpa, it hurts. Stop hitting me. My insides started quivering, then my entire body followed. Suddenly, I hit a breaking point. I clutched my ears with force. Stop it. Stop it. Kaden hurriedly turned it off, wrapping his arms around me. Don't be afraid, Sue. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I pushed him away and hit him hard. Why? Why'd you let me hear that? Kaden, I hate you. I hate you. I hate Sydney. I hate Lisa. I want them all to suffer. Kaden just stood there, unmoving, letting me take out my anger. I don't even know how long I hit him, until my arms were too tired, drained of strength. That's when I stopped. Feeling better? Kaden sighed, enveloping me in a hug once more, gently patting my back. I won't show you stuff like that again. I nodded. I just wanted you to see that no men are decent. You saw how that old geezer treated your sister, didn't you? So keep away from old men. If it's not me, don't let anyone call you over, okay? I nodded again. Then I looked up at him. Does that mean you're not decent? Kaden chuckled at my question. What do you think? I studied him closely. In my heart, Kaden was never exactly a good person. But all these years, at first, he was really harsh on me, although it only lasted about half a year. Ever since, and up until now, he's been very, very good to me. Sue, I'm not a good person. Kaden looked into my eyes, but I'm trying to be a good brother. I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you. I shook my head. You don't need to try. You're already a great brother. Kaden let out a soft laugh. Is your bar for good brothers set that low? I laughed too, feeling much lighter. Then hold yourself to a higher standard. Kaden took my hand and led me out of the study. That sister of yours, keep your distance from her too. I'll talk to your school about moving her to another dorm. No. I stopped him by holding his hand. Kaden turned. Don't tell me after tonight it wasn't obvious she wanted to hand you over to the old man. And you still see her as a sister? 7 No. When I was 8, I already didn't have a sister. Now, it's just you. But I need to keep an eye on her. That makes me feel safer. Worst case, you can send someone to protect me. Kaden rubbed my head again. All right. You better head back to your room and get some rest. Monday, Lisa didn't show up. Even though I missed the details that day, just hearing Lisa's heart-wrenching cries made it clear she was being really tormented by that old creep. Half a month later, Lisa finally showed up at school. Looked like she had lost some weight too. I pretended to be worried. Sis, where have you been all this time? You don't look so great. Lisa reflexively touched her cheek and then glared at me. None of your business. I shrugged, just concerned about you. Why don't you worry about yourself? Don't let someone break your legs. Lisa snapped before darting into the bathroom. The dorm still had the lingering smell of her heavy perfume. It was overwhelming. After a long while, Lisa came out, got her things together, and headed to class. I also went to class, but didn't sit with Lisa. Her perfume was just too much. Classmates started complaining. Lisa, did you put on so much perfume? It's giving me a headache. Lisa shot back. How is it so strong? Don't be jealous if you can't afford designer perfume. Everyone kept their distance, but Lisa didn't care. Back in the dorm, she did gripe to me though. Our class is full of people with no real skills but lots of problems. So what if I wear perfume? I was honest. Your perfume is really too strong. It stings. Lisa rolled her eyes. You're just like them. Anyway, I'm not staying in school much longer. I'm about to break into showbiz. A few nights later, Lisa and I were doing our own things in the dorm when her phone rang. After the call, she rushed over to brag. Sue, I'm entering showbiz as a big star. Grandpa wants me to meet a director and producer now. Bad memories from a past life flooded my mind. I nodded slowly. Then you should go. Lisa put on her best outfit, applied some meticulous makeup, and happily left. Suddenly, I remembered something and immediately called a bodyguard Kaden sent to watch over me, asking him to follow Lisa. At a private club, the bodyguard couldn't get in, so he called me. I reached out to Kaden to see what he could do. Kaden seemed to understand what I was angling for. After a pause, he said, send the bodyguard back, I'll send someone in. I agreed and hung up. But even past midnight, I didn't hear from Kaden and fell asleep eventually. The next morning, Lisa hadn't returned. After getting ready, I called Kaden. So did you find out anything last night? Kaden paused before saying, just the usual stuff, you can probably guess. Can I see it? I asked. Instead of answering, Kaden asked, why do you want to see it? Then he hung up on me. That afternoon, when I had no classes, Kaden came to pick me up and took me to a house near the school. He played a recording for me. It was filled with the disgusting laughter of men. Then Sydney's creepy and perverse voice came through. Lisa, put in some effort and serve these gentlemen well. Lisa couldn't speak, only managing some muffled sounds. Sydney scolded, haven't I taught you better? Didn't you want to enter showbiz? Kaden stopped the recording. All right, you can't listen to the rest of this. As I said before, stay away from that sister and old guy of yours. An idea quickly formed in my mind, a smile appearing on my face without realizing it. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chin. Kaden had gripped it tightly, making his dark eyes bore into mine as he sternly warned, "Behave yourself. Got it? It hurts," I grumbled, trying to pry his fingers off. "You're hurting me." Kaden let go immediately and checked my chin. "You're so delicate." I wasn't even using force. "What do you mean not using force? Feels like you were trying to snap my chin off," I complained. He tapped my head lightly. "Behave. Remember that. I don't know the exact thoughts in your head, but I know you don't like that sister and that old man. If you don't like them, just let me know and I'll get rid of them. But Sue, if I ever find out you're pulling stunts on your own, I really will punish you." I knew Kaden was only saying this because he was worried about me. I wrapped my arms around his neck. "You're the best, brother." Kaden looked at me quietly for a bit before sighing. "It's like this brother title has got me wrapped around your little finger. Doesn't seem like a fair deal." I nodded, releasing him. "Fine, then why don't you just give up on having me as a sister?" "Don't say stuff like that." Kaden's voice dropped a pitch. He didn't like hearing that. Lisa came back to school pretty quickly this time. In the dorm, she told me excitedly, "I'm about to start filming. The script is set, and once the team is ready, we start shooting." "Congratulations." Lisa smugly hummed and went to the bathroom. Her perfume was only getting stronger by the day. Was it to mask the old man's smell? Before filming started, Lisa was still attending classes. But clearly, she was more animated than before, announcing her soon-to-begin acting career everywhere she went. Some classmates were interested, while others were just envious. Walking into the classroom, I saw a crowd around Lisa. "Can you help me get in? I'm not asking for much, just a background role. My lines are pretty good. Could I get a few?" Lisa was really enjoying being the center of attention. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Ugh, what's that awful smell? Did someone poop themselves? Gross." The crowd around Lisa scattered in an instant. Everyone else grabbed their stuff and ran out of the classroom. I was about to join them when I noticed Lisa just standing there, not moving. Someone behind me said, "Lisa pooped." That classroom was ventilated, so we were moved to a different one. But Lisa was nowhere to be seen. After class, Kaden came to pick me up. "Did you know your sister ended up in the hospital again?" I figured Lisa was in trouble again, but I didn't know she was in the hospital. "Why?" Kaden cleared his throat. "I'd rather not say. It might gross you out." I thought about the scene in the classroom earlier, and everything Lisa had been through. I did some digging online, and even if Kaden hadn't said anything, I had a pretty good guess. Lisa must have had an anal fistula and couldn't control her muscles, so she had bowel and bladder incontinence. No wonder she wore such strong perfume. It was to cover up the smell. But obviously, it wasn't enough. I thought for a moment and asked Kaden to take me to the hospital. He was silent for a bit, but he took me anyway. When I entered Lisa's hospital room, he and the bodyguard stayed at the door. "Hey, sis." As soon as I got to the bed, Lisa started screaming like crazy. Kaden came in, checked I was okay, then left again. "Get lost." Lisa's face was pale like a ghost, full of resentment. "Are you here to laugh at me?" I sighed. "Sis, don't be like that. I'm really worried about you. Even though you can't be a big star anymore, you should still think about Grandpa. He's old, his heart isn't good, and he's on meds every day. If something happens to you and he gets upset, what would he do?" I put extra weight on the words like big star, heart, and meds, hoping Lisa would understand. Sure enough, the crazy Lisa suddenly stopped, looked at me, and laughed hysterically. Kaden came in and pulled me out. Lisa kept on laughing. Kaden dragged me into the car and sternly asked, "What were you doing? Didn't I tell you? If you need anything done, tell me, I'll do it. Who told you to take risks? He's been getting tougher lately. Isn't it because you're out there keeping me safe? If I'm not scared, why should you be?" "You?" Kaden stared at me for a long time, then turned away, looking out the window, his voice a bit distant. "Sue, I've only got you." I knew he was afraid something might happen to me. But some things, I wanted to do myself. I wanted to get revenge for myself. I hugged him. "Bro, I won't let anything happen to me." Lisa didn't disappoint me. She went straight home after being discharged from the hospital. The next day, I got news of Sydney's death. That moment, the big weight in my heart finally lifted. He's dead. That old creep is finally dead. Feels good. No one had to tell me. I knew. Sydney died of a heart attack. His heart couldn't handle that death-like thrill, and without his meds, he just faded away. After Sydney's funeral, Lisa rushed to the company, saying she wanted a shareholders meeting. All the shareholders went. As a shareholder, I naturally had to attend. Lisa was shocked to see me. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. "I'm a shareholder, remember?" Kaden passed between Lisa and me, pulling me inside. Lisa went to the front. "Grandpa's dead." He said that after he dies, everything will go to me, so from now on, I'm the chairman of this company. Hearing this, the shareholders looked at each other and laughed. Young lady, we came out of respect for you, but you shouldn't play us like that. Lisa's face turned anxious. I'm not playing you. Grandpa has a will. Director John chuckled and waved his hand. No need for a will. Your grandpa's shares have long been in Kaden's hands. He didn't have any assets left. Lisa was stunned. What? She looked completely incredulous. No way. That's impossible. Director John continued. Kaden is now the largest shareholder, and our Miss Sue here is the second largest. He pointed at me. Lisa still couldn't believe it. This can't be true. She suddenly went crazy, pointing at me, her voice sharp and piercing. Sue, why aren't your legs crippled? Kaden, hurry up and cripple her legs. Hurry. Kaden gave Lisa a cold look and called people to throw her out. The shareholder meeting was a joke. Kaden and I walked out together. There are cameras in Grandpa's room. Lisa intentionally took his meds. It was premeditated murder. I called the police. Suddenly, we heard a piercing engine rev. We looked over at the same time. Lisa was in a car, speeding toward us. Her face was twisted like a demon from hell. Her lips seemed to be mouthing, die. It all happened in an instant. I didn't even have time to react before Kaden pushed me aside with force. Then bang, Kaden flew out. Lisa's car crashed into the pillars at the company's entrance. She died on the spot. 2 days later, Kaden woke up. His gaze felt different. I was about to call out when he stopped me. He asked a thought-provoking question. Did I make the right choices this life? I froze. Kaden had awakened memories from his past life. You know everything now? Even lying in bed, Kaden exuded a commanding presence. Sue, you really are my good sister. My heart raced, and it took me a good while to find my voice again. I'm going to get the doctor. 9. Just as I reached the door, Kaden's voice came through again. Sue. I stopped in my tracks and slowly turned to meet his gaze. He was staring at me for so long. Did you ever think of me as a brother? He asked. I just stared at him. Kaden's gaze deepened, like he was hoping for something. Even for a moment, did you ever feel anything real for me? I looked at the man lying on the bed. Finally, I lowered my eyes and mumbled, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kaden, I've been using you all this time. Over the years, using you has become ingrained in me. I've always had just myself in my heart. Besides myself, I guess I don't really let anyone else in. I'll go find the doctor. The doctor told me Kaden was out of danger, but he still needed to stay in the hospital for observation. I nodded. I'm going home to get some things for him. After gathering Kaden's personal stuff, I headed back to the hospital. But his bed was empty. My heart skipped a beat, and suddenly, it felt like there was an emptiness inside me too. I heard a nurse behind me sigh. He was supposed to be out of danger. How did he suddenly pass away? I stood there, frozen. It felt like I'd lost touch with reality. I don't even know how long I stood there. It felt like a century passed. Then, a familiar voice came from behind me. Sue. I stiffened and slowly turned around. Kaden stood there, leaning on a crutch, dressed in patient clothes, right in front of me. But why couldn't I see his face clearly? Why are you crying? He asked. I touched my cheek, realizing it was wet. Oh, I was crying. My throat felt tight and hot. I opened my mouth, but it took a while before I could speak. I thought you were dead. Kaden chuckled softly. Wouldn't that have been better? At that moment, the tears just flowed. I could feel my lips trembling, my voice shaky with sobs. No. Without you, I wouldn't have a brother anymore. It's been 10 years. All this time, I've wrapped myself in coldness and selfishness. But slowly, Kaden seeped into my world. He's my brother. I don't care if he was a monster in a past life or if he's a good person now. He is just my brother. Kaden came closer, wiping my tears away with one hand, still using the crutch. Don't cry. Your brother won't die. As long as you need me, I'll be here to protect you. I nodded. Okay. The end.